Hi art teachers, welcome back. I'm Lauren, Inside Out Art Teacher, and today I'm going to share with you my high school art scope and sequence curriculum map for the year. You can also use this for middle school. Just so you know, I will be linking this curriculum map, both curriculum maps here in the description below. You can download that for free. And also on my blog, if you click the link on the scope and sequence, you can find instructions, video demonstrations, and step-by-step instructions on how to do these projects with your students. Okay, so let's get started. So the beginning of the year, where do we start on the first day of school? So my best tip for the first day of school is before I even start thinking about projects or anything like that, I take some time to really just informally talk to the students and get to know their names. So the best way to do this, my best trick for this, is to make associations in your mind. So for example, if your student's name is Matt, picture Matt doing a flip. And I actually explain to them what I'm doing so they know I'm not staring at them awkwardly. I tell them it's really important to me that I get to know your names. So if I'm looking at you strange, it's because I'm trying to make an association. And I'll even tell them what the association is. And a lot of times they laugh. And then at the end of the year, they're like, remember when you pictured me flipping on a mat in the beginning of the year? Okay, so first day of school. So I mix things up year to year. As far as projects go, I follow the same exact order of skills, but the project that we do to learn that skill, a lot of times I switch out to make it easier or to make it just more exciting or fun. Or if I'm doing the same thing with two different groups, I might do a similar lesson with Art 1 that I'm doing with Art 2. But Art 2 might have a bigger paper or a different material or have a totally different theme, but I still, even in an Art 2 class, will start off in this order. So I'll explain that as I go. So first day of school, sometimes I do an activity, like a quick little icebreaker, but a lot of times I'll just dive right into the project. And the last few years, I've done the same exact project. I always start with Neurographic Art. All they have to focus on is creating lines and then smoothing out the edges. I won't go into the specifics of how to do all the projects. I'm just showing you the sequence. But if you want to learn more about this on my blog, I have a blog post that explains a lot more and a video showing you exactly how to do this. So we start 1 or 2 days on something small and simple like this. And then they'll do a finished project. And again, it's just free-form lines. You can find all the steps in that other blog post. But they learn a lot about how lines that go from thick to thin are really interesting. And they learn a lot about line control with that too. So then the second lesson is always just plain old negative space. I've done this lesson with different subject matter. I have one that I do that's skeletons. I usually do that with my classes when they have in the fall. It usually times out really good. October is usually around when we start our second lesson or right before October. And then when I have the kids in the spring, sometimes I'll switch it out and we'll do either our subject matter might be plant life or flowers or sea life or something like that. Just go with the flow. They're learning the same skills, but sometimes they'll switch out the medium. So negative space is where I go second. And when they're learning negative space, we start super small. I always begin with worksheets, and they're learning how to draw with an X grid. I love teaching the X grid method because when you do a regular grid, a lot of times they make so many mistakes just on the grid and it takes a lot of time. When you use the X grid, there's no room for error. There's no measuring. It's a really good, and they don't have to grid the whole thing. They just use it as a guide. And then as they get more confident and better using the grid, they use less and less guide marks and they can start doing it in their head by the time they're in 2 or 3. But this is a really great way to build confidence. So they learn the X grid with the negative space project. And then after negative space, we combine the two. So we do a line drawing project. So this would be the exercise for it, where they use what they learned in the first lesson, the thick to thin lines, and also they repeat the X grid. So really not much is new here. The image is just getting a little bit more complex. So again, I have lots of lessons for this stage. So I've done it with just animals and kept a clean background and allowed them to color their images. I've had them break up their image into shapes, incorporate words and lines into their images, and decorate the background. I've done, here's some more examples. I've done this with neurographic art over the top. So they're combining the neurographic art and the drawing. And you'll find all of these lessons on my curriculum map here, and then on the blog and on my website, you can find lots of how-to tutorials showing you step-by-step the process. So by now, so we're on our third project, and sometimes I'll do, if I feel like they need more practice, I'll do 2 different projects reinforcing the same skill. And I have lots of choices on that curriculum map. So the third thing we learn is shading. I always start with super simple worksheets that are linked in the curriculum map. And then we do a worksheet that combines, again, the XGrid and drawing first. So they've already learned that. They've just learned value. They've isolated the skill on the worksheet. Now they're putting them together on a practice worksheet. And then they would do the final project. So in the beginning, because I like them when they're just getting started to isolate their skills as much as possible, I usually like pre-grid some of the reference images for them, but you don't have to. I just find some people need that reminder over and over again before they really get confident and good at it. So I love doing candles, but I've done geometric shapes. I've done just a plain sphere. I've done all different kinds of subject matter, and there's lots of choices here on the scope and sequence that you can choose from. I have drapery, flowers, chicken or the egg is kind of fun, whatever you want to mix it up. And then if I'm doing this with advanced classes also, so my advanced classes may have already done some of those lessons, I'll do a subject matter that is even more complex. So even in an R2 class, I'm really following the same scope and sequence. I'm just giving my R2s the projects that are a little bit harder, because that way they get to review, they get rusty over the summer. They review how to use the XGrid, they review the line work, and they'll move a lot quicker than your R1s. So this would be an example, or our portrait would be an example of something I do with R2 or 3. So then the next lesson after we've learned shading is we just reinforce value, and I try to keep this subject, and this is for Art 1s and also middle school, keep this as simple as possible. Again, I will pre-grid their reference images for them in Art 1, and then once they get to Art 2, their subjects will become more complex, the papers will become bigger, and they don't need me to do that anymore. You can do something just super simple, like a sphere. So now once they've learned reverse value, they're really confident looking for light and shadow, they're incorporating the XGrid, they know how to get their proportions first. Then we do something on toned paper. So now they're looking for the highlights, they're looking for the shadow, but they're using the toned paper for the middle ground. I've done this on all different colors of paper. I have them do a value scale first, so they know which value their paper is. I've done chains, I've done tools, and then after they're really comfortable with value, then we go into color theory. And with color theory, I usually like to start with colored pencils or watercolor, just because it's quick. I guess colored pencil really takes longer, but I try to keep the project kind of small and the subject very simple to start. So they're really just learning how to layer and blend and all of that stuff. And then after colored pencil, then we would move on to other colored media like watercolor or acrylic painting. But really, that's it. I sequence them just so that they're repeating, they're using those same basic drawing techniques over and over again. As they get more confident, we start taking off the training wheels, they start gridding their own images, they start finding their own images, they start editing their own images. But in the beginning, I do a lot for them so that they feel like they're supported and we're not really wasting time looking for the subject matter, etc. I find at first, most people, like students in the beginning, safety net of me giving it to them. But really, that's it. That's how I put it all together. You can spend more time on one thing than another. You really just have to read your students. But this sequence I have found really gives them confidence, and they just get better and better slowly. It's really easy for them. So I hope that helps. And that's it. Take care.